Former NSA contractor Ed Snowden is free in Russia. The Russians granted him a one-year visa today. Ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Representative Eliot Engel, is with us. And Congressman, welcome, first of all, to Power Lunch. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
I want to start with whether or not you think the president is handling this the correct way. Is he putting enough pressure on Russia to get Mr. Snowden back here?
Well, I'm sure he is. You know, not everything is as it appears up front. There are many private communications. I'm sure the administration and the president in particular is saying what needs to be said. It's outrageous that Russia is allowing him to stay in the country. It's absolutely outrageous, and I believe that we cannot continue as business as usual with the Russians. Now, Russia is certainly an important country, and it's not something we're going to break off diplomatic relations for. But I think that we need to have a response. I think we need to have a tempered response. But I just think that...
What would that response be? Ideally, if you could construct a response to President Putin right now, what would it be?
Well, I think that the president is scheduled to meet with Mr. Putin in a few weeks. I certainly, if I were advising the president, I would tell him not to go. I think that Putin has to understand that there are consequences to what he does. Now, we're not going to blow up our relationship with Russia because obviously it's an important relationship. But I think that we should cool it for a while, and I think we should let him know that this is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. And, you know, particularly since Putin is someone who unfortunately has taken Russia back into the bad old days of the Soviet Union. Right. Former KGB guy, I think he never stopped being a KGB guy, and he looks upon the United States apparently as an adversary rather than as a potential friend and ally. And I think that if that's the way he feels, we can't just be punching bags. We've got to punch back.
Speaking of punching back, just days before Iran gets a new president, the House has passed a very aggressive, for lack of a better word, sanctions bill aiming to bring the Islamic Republic's oil exports almost to zero by next year. It targets other sectors as well, specifically Iran's economy. And it basically makes companies in other countries forced to choose between doing business with the U.S. or business with Iran. You were one of the key sponsors of the bill. That's a pretty strong message you seem to be sending.
Well, it's more than sending a message. First of all, your description is very right on the money. That's exactly what the bill does. You know, for years, Iran has been playing games with the international community, talking about potentially stopping its nuclear program, but continuing to spin centrifuges and continuing to move closer and closer to having a nuclear bomb. I mean, we can't wait anymore. We impose these sanctions because we hope that it will make the Iranian regime change its ways and understand that it cannot continue to thumb its nose at the international community. Iran must not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon for so many reasons. First of all, if Iran had a nuclear weapon, other countries in the region would surely get one right away. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, United Arab Emirates. It would start off a terrible race. That's something that shouldn't be allowed. The former president of Iran has threatened to wipe Israel off the map with nuclear weapons, has made bellicose statements about our allies in Europe, NATO allies and European Union allies in Europe, and they would have the ability to hit the United States within a year or two if they were allowed to have a nuclear weapon. So we want to dissuade them, and we think that this legislation is the way to do it.
It certainly would seem to, but the question is whether or not, I mean, it's obviously gone through the House, but what about the Senate?
Well, the Senate, I'm told, is going to be taking up similar legislation in September. When they do that, of course, it'll go to a conference committee and we'll iron it out. I don't think that should be a problem, and I believe the president will sign the bill because nobody wants Iran to have nuclear weapons, even some of the people on the floor. And the bill, by the way, was passed overwhelmingly 400 to 20. But even amongst the 20 people, they favor sanctions on Iran. They just felt, for whatever reason, the time was not right. But the time is right because times are marching on, and the clock we have to use is the Iranian nuclear clock.
Exactly.
Every day that we allow them to spin centrifuges is a day closer that they get to having a nuclear weapon, and that's what we want to prevent.
That goes to my next question, whether or not, although this bill certainly I would think, would dissuade them. The goal of sanctions over the past few years has been to do just that, and it hasn't seemed to work. They probably are closer to building a nuclear bomb than they ever have been before. Is it too late?
I hope not. And you're right about previous sanctions not working. That's why these sanctions are the toughest sanctions ever. We hope that maybe they will work. But if they don't work, I think the president has made it clear that all options are on the table because Iran must not be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. And President Obama has told me personally and told many other people personally that under his watch he will not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Congressman Engel, thank you so much for spending time with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.